At my wedding, my sister-in-law mocked my $350 dress and then smashed my cake with a grin, right in front of everyone. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I had imagined this day for years, my perfect dress, my family, my friends, and Reed, the love of my life, waiting at the altar. But the moment I stepped into the room, I felt a cold weight on my chest. That's when I saw her, Lorna, my sister-in-law. She was always charming to others, but I knew her well enough to recognize the sharp glint in her eyes. As I walked down the aisle, her stare burned through me like a spotlight, making my skin crawl. I tried to shake it off, focusing on Reed's smile, the way his eyes lit up when he saw me. But Lorna wasn't done. By the time the reception started, she had made her move. Laughing loudly, she grabbed the top layer of our wedding cake and smashed it on the table, frosting and decorations flying everywhere. Guests gasped, some stifled laughter, others looked shocked, and I froze, my heart sinking. Reed rushed to calm me, but humiliation clawed at my chest. In that instant, I realized this wasn't just a joke, it was deliberate. Lorna wanted attention, wanted control, wanted to ruin my day. But deep down, something shifted inside me. I knew I wouldn't let her get away with it. The spark of determination flickered, and I vowed that this betrayal wouldn't define my wedding, or me. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I started noticing small things that didn't sit right. Lorna had a way of making offhand comments that cut deeper than anyone else's. She'd casually question my taste in clothes, ask why Reed and I hadn't upgraded our apartment, or make snide remarks about how I handled wedding planning. At first, I tried to shrug it off, telling myself she was just joking or that I was overthinking. Family tensions happen, I reasoned. But there was a pattern I couldn't ignore. Whenever I shared an idea or mentioned something I loved, Lorna would raise an eyebrow or smirk, as if nothing I did was ever enough. She made subtle digs at Reed too, questioning his career choices or suggesting he wasn't organized enough. The way she smiled after these comments made my stomach twist. It wasn't playful, it was pointed. I wanted to confront her, but every time I tried, Reed would brush it aside. He didn't notice the undercurrent of hostility or, maybe, he refused to. He kept reassuring me, saying things like, "She doesn't mean it," or, "Don't let it bother you." His calm presence was comforting, and I clung to that, hoping it would protect me from feeling cornered. Still, the unease lingered. I started quietly bracing myself for what might come, a sense of tension threading through moments that should have been joyful. Something told me Lorna's behavior wasn't harmless. It wasn't just family drama, it felt like a warning I couldn't ignore, a prelude to something far bigger. And yet, through it all, Reed remained my anchor, his steady confidence reminding me that no matter what, I wouldn't have to face whatever was coming alone. The reception had just begun, and the atmosphere was full of laughter, clinking glasses, and soft music. I was trying to soak in the joy when Lorna made her move. At first, it seemed playful, she leaned toward the cake, joking about how perfect it looked. But in an instant, she yanked the top tier off and slammed it onto the table. Frosting splattered across the floor, and chunks of cake tumbled onto guests' shoes and dresses. A loud gasp rippled through the room. I couldn't react at first. My body went rigid, my face hot with embarrassment. I felt every eye on me, and for a moment, I was frozen, trapped in a humiliation I couldn't escape. Guests murmured, some in disbelief, some hiding smiles behind their hands. My heart thudded painfully, and anger surged beneath the shock. How could someone be so cruel at a moment meant to celebrate love? Reed stepped forward, his hand brushing mine, trying to steady me. "Harper, it's okay. Don't let her ruin this," he whispered, but his words only made the sting sharper. I could feel the mix of mortification and fury twisting in my chest. This wasn't just thoughtless mischief, it was deliberate, malicious, and public. My mind raced. I couldn't confront her in the moment without making a scene, but I knew something had to change. I couldn't let Lorna walk away thinking this was acceptable. A quiet, burning resolve took root inside me, I wouldn't show my tears, I wouldn't scream, but I wouldn't let her win. This act of cruelty had lit a fire I couldn't ignore, and I knew I had to find a way to reclaim my dignity and make sure she faced the consequences. After the chaos of the cake, I slipped away from the crowd, finding a small corner near the windows where I could breathe without prying eyes. My hands shook, and the tight knot in my chest refused to loosen. Tears threatened to spill, but I swallowed them, knowing the last thing I wanted was a scene. The laughter and chatter of the reception felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. My mother appeared, concern etched across her face. She gently placed her hand on my shoulder, whispering reassurances, telling me it was just a moment, that weddings were always stressful. I wanted to lean on her, to let her take the sting away, but I realized there was nothing anyone could do to erase what had just happened. The humiliation, the shock, the sense of betrayal, they lingered, invisible but heavy. Alone in that quiet space, a different feeling began to emerge, determination. I refused to allow anger or embarrassment to dictate my actions in front of family and friends. Lorna couldn't have the satisfaction of seeing me crumble publicly. Yet I knew in my heart that justice, even small, was necessary. This wasn't about revenge fueled by rage, it was about holding her accountable for what she had done. I began mentally retracing her actions, cataloging the ways she had interfered or sought attention, the subtle manipulations I had previously overlooked. A plan began to form, careful and deliberate. I would act with patience, ensuring she faced the consequences without exposing myself to ridicule. This was the moment I realized the power of restraint, that true strength came from calm control, and that Lorna's actions, though shocking, would not define me. In that quiet corner, amidst the soft hum of celebration beyond the window, I resolved to reclaim my wedding and my dignity in a way she would never see coming. A few days after the wedding, I began noticing odd messages from vendors, questions about payments, delays, and confusion about the schedule. At first, I assumed it was normal post-wedding chaos, but the pattern became too strange to ignore. Digging deeper, I discovered notes and whispers from several people involved in the planning. Lorna had been calling florists, catering staff, and even the photographer, offering alternative instructions, suggesting mistakes, and casting doubt on my reliability. The realization hit me like a cold wave: this wasn't a spontaneous prank or thoughtless act at the reception. Lorna had spent weeks undermining every detail, quietly trying to turn the day into a disaster. She had also circulated rumors among family members about our finances, implying that Reed and I couldn't afford the wedding or that we were reckless with money. The whispers reached distant relatives and a few close friends, leaving me to pick up the pieces of not just a ruined cake, but a shattered sense of trust. The betrayal stung far deeper than any public humiliation. Lorna's actions were intentional, carefully plotted, and designed to make me doubt myself and feel small. The magnitude of it left me reeling. This was personal, targeted, and coldly deliberate. She wasn't just jealous, she wanted control, recognition, and to prove herself superior, even at the cost of family harmony. For the first time, I truly understood the extent of her manipulation. The laughter at the reception had been just one act in a larger plan, one piece of a puzzle she had been arranging behind my back. Knowing this changed everything. It wasn't enough to endure or forgive casually. I had to act, but I would do it on my terms, quietly and strategically, ensuring Lorna faced the consequences she had tried so desperately to avoid. In the days after discovering Lorna's schemes, I realized that appearing composed was my strongest weapon. Around family and friends, I wore a calm smile, speaking politely, laughing when prompted, and keeping my tone even. When Lorna approached, pretending to offer help with the leftover wedding arrangements, I thanked her warmly, acknowledging her assistance in a way that sounded sincere but carefully measured. Every word, every gesture, was deliberate. I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me unsettled. Behind the scenes, however, I was far from idle. I started documenting every interaction, collecting messages, vendor confirmations, and small inconsistencies that pointed to her interference. Each call she had made, every alteration she suggested, every rumor she had whispered, nothing escaped my attention. I organized it carefully, noting dates, times, and the people involved. It wasn't just about proving she had acted maliciously, it was about creating a record so solid that no one could deny her intent. Maintaining a gracious exterior wasn't easy. Every time I saw her smirk or catch my eye, the memory of the cake incident flared, and I had to consciously redirect my emotions. But each moment of restraint strengthened my resolve. I realized that patience was a weapon just as sharp as anger. By staying calm, I could control the narrative, choosing when and how to expose her without compromising my own integrity. A sense of quiet anticipation settled over me. While Lorna assumed her actions had gone unnoticed, I was preparing a response that would be precise and undeniable. My demeanor remained polite, my smile unwavering, but underneath, a careful plan was taking shape, one that would ensure her betrayal would no longer go unchallenged, and that I would emerge with dignity intact. As the days passed, Lorna's confidence seemed to swell. She walked into family gatherings with a self-satisfied air, smiling as if she had orchestrated everything flawlessly. She casually dropped comments that suggested the wedding's success was somehow her doing, pointing out details she helped coordinate or complimenting vendors in a way that implied she deserved credit. Guests, unaware of her true intentions, nodded politely, giving her the attention she craved. Her insults became more pointed, though cleverly disguised. She would make remarks about my decision-making or Reed's calm nature, presenting them as jokes while everyone laughed along. Lorna assumed I would remain silent, that I lacked the strength to challenge her narrative. Every boast, every sly grin, revealed her arrogance and made it clear she believed she had won. Inside, I watched and calculated. Her overconfidence was a weakness I could exploit. While she flaunted control and charm, I quietly continued building evidence, lining up vendors' statements, and collecting the proof that showed how deeply she had interfered. Each arrogant word she spoke added another piece to the puzzle I was assembling. I realized that by letting her believe she was untouchable, I could catch her in moments she didn't anticipate, exposing the truth without ever appearing vindictive. Her pride blinded her, making her underestimate my resolve and patience. I smiled politely at her remarks, nodding as if in agreement, all the while storing every detail in my memory. Lorna's sense of superiority became her undoing. Every boast, every manipulative comment, was ammunition for the plan I had carefully designed. The more she believed she had the upper hand, the closer she brought herself to a reckoning she would not see coming. Her arrogance had made her careless, and I was ready to turn it into the advantage I needed. I realized the only way to regain control was to act subtly. Instead of confronting Lorna head-on, I began sharing carefully chosen details of her behavior with family members I trusted. I described moments they might have overlooked, how she had pushed vendors, spread misinformation, and inserted herself into situations under the guise of help. I didn't exaggerate, I presented facts with calm clarity, letting her actions speak louder than my words. I timed these revelations carefully, waiting for moments when family members were receptive and could observe her in action. I added context when necessary, showing patterns rather than isolated incidents. Slowly, people began noticing inconsistencies in her story, realizing that the charm she displayed publicly often masked manipulation behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Lorna started to sense a shift. Her confident smiles faltered slightly when she noticed subtle glances or whispers among relatives. There was a tension in the air that hadn't existed before, a growing awareness that the picture she had painted of herself was beginning to unravel. She tried to maintain control, but the cracks were visible, and her usual poise occasionally slipped into irritation. Through it all, I remained composed. I never raised my voice, never let anger show, and never confronted her directly in public. My calm demeanor created a sense of unshakable certainty, a quiet power that contrasted sharply with her growing unease. The more she tried to assert dominance, the more her efforts highlighted the careful planning I had undertaken. By staying patient and methodical, I managed to turn her arrogance against her. Lorna, who had once controlled the room effortlessly, now appeared uncertain and exposed. I had become untouchable not through confrontation, but through strategy, observation, and restraint, quietly reclaiming authority while she floundered in the consequences of her own overconfidence. After weeks of careful observation and documentation, I knew it was time to confront Lorna directly. I asked her to meet me in a quiet room away from everyone else, ensuring there would be no distractions or interruptions. My hands were steady, my voice calm, but inside I felt a mix of anticipation and resolve. I laid out everything I had collected, emails from vendors she had pressured, receipts showing her interference, and notes from friends who had witnessed her manipulations. Each piece of evidence was clear, precise, and undeniable. I didn't yell, I didn't accuse, I simply presented the facts, letting the weight of the proof speak for itself. At first, she laughed, waving a hand as if to dismiss the papers. "This is ridiculous," she said, her tone dripping with false confidence. But I remained composed, maintaining eye contact and an even tone. I didn't waver. I didn't need to raise my voice. The calmness in my approach contrasted sharply with her forced amusement, and for the first time I saw her smile falter. I watched as the color drained from her face. Her attempts at control began to crumble under the evidence I presented. Questions she had no answers for hung in the air, and I could feel the shift. She realized that this wasn't a game she could manipulate anymore. For the first time, Lorna was truly cornered. She fidgeted, searching for excuses, but there were none. The careful web she had woven to undermine me had been systematically unraveled, piece by piece, and I had orchestrated every move with precision. That room, quiet and tense, became the place where the tables fully turned, and she finally understood that her actions had consequences she hadn't anticipated. A week after confronting Lorna, I decided it was time to reclaim the narrative publicly, but carefully. I organized a small gathering with close family to celebrate the final touches of our wedding cleanup. It wasn't flashy or loud, just a quiet occasion where everyone could reflect on the day and share memories. During the event, I casually recounted moments from the wedding, highlighting the teamwork and contributions that had made everything possible. When I mentioned incidents, I framed them factually, letting the sequence of events reveal Lorna's interference without ever directly attacking her. I praised vendors and friends who had supported the day, subtly exposing the contrast between genuine effort and manipulative actions. Lorna tried to insert herself as usual, offering comments that were meant to steer attention toward her. But this time, they fell flat. Family members exchanged knowing glances, and the patterns I had documented became more visible to everyone present. Her attempts to charm the room no longer carried weight. The foundation she had built for herself was quietly crumbling under the scrutiny of careful observation. By remaining composed and gracious, I allowed the truth to emerge naturally. There was no shouting, no dramatic accusations, just a calm presentation of facts that illuminated the situation. Guests began to connect the dots, murmuring about inconsistencies they had noticed, recalling subtle manipulations they had previously dismissed. Slowly, the full extent of Lorna's actions became clear to everyone present. The atmosphere shifted. Lorna's confident posture stiffened, her attempts at control faltering in the light of quiet, undeniable evidence. The celebration, meant to honor closure and accomplishment, became a moment of subtle reckoning, where I didn't need to shame her. Her own behavior revealed the truth to everyone around. After the subtle revelations at the cleanup gathering, Lorna's position within the family shifted noticeably. People who once hung on her every word began questioning her intentions, and her influence waned without any confrontation from me. It was as if the walls she had built around herself quietly collapsed, leaving her isolated and exposed. I didn't feel triumph in the way one might imagine with revenge. There was no delight in seeing her falter or fear in her eyes. Instead, I felt a quiet satisfaction rooted in clarity and fairness. I had acted with patience, restraint, and thoughtfulness, allowing the truth to unfold naturally. The outcome was justice without chaos, vindication without hostility. A weight lifted from me, the kind that comes from knowing you haven't stooped to anger or retaliation, yet you've ensured the wrongdoing is recognized. I could breathe freely, my mind unclouded by bitterness. I had reclaimed control of my narrative, and in doing so, I discovered a new sense of strength. Even as Lorna attempted to maintain appearances, her diminished sway was undeniable. Family members, once unknowingly complicit in overlooking her behavior, now aligned with honesty and fairness. Observing this, I felt a deep emotional closure. I had preserved my dignity and integrity while allowing consequences to unfold naturally, proving that intelligence and composure can be far more powerful than rage. For the first time since the cake incident, I could sit back and let life move forward. I didn't need to prove anything further. Her diminished influence and the recognition of my own calm resolve were enough. Lorna had lost the battle for control, but I had gained peace, clarity, and the knowledge that true strength is shown through measured action rather than public spectacle. Once the tension around Lorna faded, Reed and I could finally turn our attention fully to life as a married couple. The days after the wedding, once shadowed by stress and manipulation, became moments of connection, laughter, and shared dreams. We focused on routines, plans, and the small joys that make a home feel like ours, unburdened by interference or judgment. Reflecting on the wedding, the memories were no longer just painful, they carried a strange sense of triumph. Each challenge, each insult, and every sly maneuver by Lorna had tested me, but I had endured and emerged intact. Those moments became markers of resilience, reminders that I could navigate difficulties while staying true to myself. Through it all, I discovered a new trust in my instincts. The unease I had felt before the wedding, the quiet warnings my intuition had offered, were accurate. Recognizing that allowed me to guard my happiness more effectively. I learned that protecting my peace doesn't require confrontation or aggression, it requires awareness, patience, and the courage to act wisely. Reed's steady presence reinforced this lesson. Together, we built boundaries that prioritized respect and understanding, creating a space where neither of us could be undermined by outside forces. The weight of past tension lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of control over our shared future. In those early weeks of married life, I understood that hardships don't have to define your story. Even in moments of betrayal, you can reclaim joy, protect your heart, and build strength. Our life together, grounded in trust and love, was proof that even amidst manipulation and chaos, it's possible to emerge stronger, wiser, and truly free from the influence of toxic people. Looking back, I realized that the most satisfying resolution wasn't about drama, shouting, or embarrassment, it was the quiet, deliberate way I reclaimed control. True vindication came from maintaining composure, allowing facts to emerge naturally, and demonstrating strength without resorting to anger. Every calculated step, every moment of patience, had turned Lorna's own schemes against her, revealing her actions without me needing to humiliate her publicly. I felt a sense of liberation I hadn't anticipated. For so long, I had carried anxiety, doubt, and the sting of her manipulation. Now, that weight was gone. The room for resentment had been replaced by clarity and pride in how I handled the situation. The sense of empowerment didn't come from seeing her falter alone, it came from knowing I had preserved my dignity, upheld fairness, and ensured that deception could no longer remain hidden. This experience taught me the value of trusting my instincts, of standing firm even when others underestimate you, and of recognizing that patience can be far stronger than confrontation. The lessons extended beyond a single family conflict, they were reminders that maintaining integrity, calmness, and strategic thinking can protect you from those who seek to undermine or control you. As I reflected on the journey from the wedding chaos to quiet triumph, I understood that revenge doesn't have to be loud or vengeful. The most powerful victories are lived out in confidence, resilience, and grace. I had navigated betrayal with intention, and in doing so, I emerged stronger than before. Sometimes the people who try to humiliate you just give you the opportunity to rise higher, and I did. My peace, my happiness, and my strength became the ultimate response to everything Lorna tried to take from me.